Escalating conflict in the Central African Republic has displaced almost a third of the country's total population. This translates to 1 in 3 people who've had to flee their homes. This is according to the Norwegian Refugee Council, which is working to support refugees and displaced people in the country. For more on this, I'm now joined on the Skype from Bangui by Country Director for the Norwegian Refugee Council in the Central African Republic, David Manan. Thanks so much indeed for joining us. Welcome to the program.
Thanks, Peter.
1 in 3 people displaced. That is a shocking number.
Yeah, you know, the humanitarian crisis in CAR remains one of the largest in the world, mainly in terms of the ratio of number of people in need of humanitarian aid. That is 57% compared to the total population. And we are seeing that the scale of these needs continue to increase in the country due to the current electoral process crisis. There are more than 100,000 people newly displaced within the country following armed clashes that have erupted since mid-December. These new displaced people join the 600,000 people who had already fled their homes. Today, 1.3 million people out of the 4.7 million people are displaced or refugees. That is more than 25% of the total population in the country.
How long has this been taking place that we've gotten to these numbers, and is it escalating?
This new number started increase from mid-December with the electoral process that moved to military crisis. And we are seeing that the situation is really worsening since December. We are not also seeing a sign of decrease of this situation. So this means that with the time moving, we could see more people displaced by this crisis.
So what are the people having to face and deal with, A, from what they're fleeing, and also, I guess, the fact that they're displaced meets new challenges?
Exactly. You know, this violence have pushed many families to leave their homes without nothing since December and to find refuge in bush, in school, in churches, and near the United Nations positions or in host families. They need help, mainly in shelter to protect their family, but also in food to feed them. They need also access to clean water and sanitation and health facility. We know that we are in COVID-19 context now around the world. This is also affecting Central African Republic people. This population also needs education for the children, but also protection for women against gender-based violence.
Food must be a huge problem, I guess, particularly when you've left your home, you're in unknown places, and particularly those who've fled even across the border.
Yeah, those who cross the border, who find refuge in neighboring countries are facing the same challenges. We have to thank these country and host families who accepted to receive these refugees. But this is putting pressure on this country, but also on these host families, because we know that needs that these refugees have are also the same as displaced population within the country have. So they need also shelter to protect their family, food, access to education, health facilities, and it is really challenging for these refugees also.
I know that you're not a political analyst, and I was speaking to one recently, and he said that, look, the reality is that these elections were basically over control of just Bangui. Outside of the capital, it really is a free-for-all, and this is what makes people particularly vulnerable, especially once you leave the major city.
Yeah, you know, in this country, we don't have some kind of homogeneous situation. We have some areas that are really stable, like Bangui and surrounding areas. Places like Beberati or Alinda or Ndele in the northern part of the country. But we also have some area that are encountering fightings between parties in conflict, like, for example, currently in Beberati. So in this area where fighting is happening, very difficult for humanitarian to work, to provide assistance to this population. So this population that are vulnerable and now affected by new armed clashes, but don't have any access to humanitarian assistance. It's sure that in other area we could provide assistance to overpopulation, but mainly for this population caught in fightings situation, we could not provide assistance to them for the time being.
You talked about children being particularly vulnerable, needing education as one of the things. But the other issue, of course, is that children are being recruited by some of these rebel groups and these armed militia. And that in itself is creating a problem now, but also, I guess, in the future when these kids are found.
Yeah, we have seen these children, but you know, in this kind of conflicts in our country, also we have seen that children are enrolled in armed groups, and this is really affecting negatively the future because they could no more go to school. They came out this period with traumatism. So it's really difficult for them, for example, when they decide to go outside these armed groups to be inserted within the families or within the communities. So we as humanitarian actors, but we think that also the international community, we need to address that, not waiting to see this situation happen, but before that, we need to put in place systems, assistance to give to these children education first, and professional opportunities for them to be able to take care of themselves, because you know they are doing that mainly because they need some money. Sometimes they need some food. They are poor, and it's really easy to attract them. But if we try to tackle these needs at the beginning, it's sure that this will really reduce importantly the number of children that are enrolled in armed groups.